Hello and welcome to another comedian's interview for my blog and podcast, A Rich Comic Life. My name is Richard Gill and my blog describes my experiences of watching well over 1,000 comedians for nearly 50 years. I'm delighted to welcome my guest today. It's Mr. Stephen Catling. Yay!
Thanks for
Hello,
having
mate.
me.
How are you?
Thanks for having me on, Richard, today. You literally just told me you've interviewed over 140 plus comedians.
We've done 140 recordings. We've put 100 of them out, which is just
It,
bonkers.
that is a lot of comedians. Um, uh,
It's
it,
it's been an amazing journey. It really has, because
mm.
every comedian's got a different story. It's fascinating.
Oh yeah, no, it, it would be strange if we all had the same story, to be honest. Um, like uh, every comedian has their own story and
Very much so,
origins.
yeah.
Um, and that is often the beauty of the circuit. A lot of different people coming from all sorts of different things. That's why,
Sure, yeah,
depending on where
yeah,
you go in the circuit, there can be so much variety of different things
yeah.
of
Well, we're
all
going to find
shapes.
out a bit more about you today.
Mm,
Thank you so much for being my guest. I'm really looking forward to chatting to you. And we're going
mm.
to go right back to the start, my friend, and ask you, how did you become a comedian in the first place?
So there's many answers to that question because of what specifically the point of origin is.
Mm.
I would say for simplicity, I started doing solo live performances
Right.
back at uni in my first year at Lancaster, way back at near the end of 2012. I
Right.
had done some sort of vague things that were comedy related, like making parodies with friends in sort of a sketch show kind of stuff. But the first sort of writing my own purely my own ideas and performing them to an audience would have started in 2012 um,
Right.
uh, at Lancaster University Comedy Institute, which is we call you Lucy. Um, it's because we know Comedy Society at uni generally wants to be called Comedy Society because then they become ComSoc, and no one wants to be ComSoc. Um, so before I joined, years previously, my group at Lancaster we used to be Lancaster University Comedy Institute for amateurs. So we were Lucifer.
Right.
Uh, I think part of the reason was because some of the older exec really wanted to annoy the Christian Union
Right.
societies. And it also meant that our radio show that we ran as part of the uni was called Talk of the Devil. But then it made
Genius.
less. Um, but yeah, so my first sort of start and forays into, uh, I'm going to say earlier parts of it, what I was doing with stand up. I'll get into, I eventually became, I was always an alternative comedian, but I just evolved more into a clown rather than
Sure.
what would be
Yeah.
considered a stand-up. I Some people do still consider me a stand-up, and I get a bit no, um, just because the format is very different to what I do. In comparison, I feel more in common with a sketch group sometimes than I do to a stand-ups.
Right.
But I started at Lancaster. I and it basically came an arms race of how weird I could get things and how surreal and absurd because we found I had a particular penchant for absurdist and surrealist comedy. Um, but in those first few years, I only did like maybe 25, and in 2017, when I moved to the south for work reasons, I vowed that I would start gigging regularly.
Right.
And so in on my birthday, in fact, in 2017, which is in January, I started gigging in London, and then I have just kept gigging since, barring like pandemic obviously slowed things down. I would
Yeah.
say kept gigging in London. There was a year I lived in Scotland because I went to do a master's uh, in sort of the time period of 2017 then. But I got into comedy because of, I think mainly Python was a huge influence to me, as was many British comedians like uh, Billy Connolly and Rod Gilbert, I would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Um, but it was, I would say, the main focal point of where became a comedian was with my comedy society. And then
That's
when I started getting, I've become what I am,
yeah. Yeah.
and officially had the start in the career was in 2017.
That's
Um,
brilliant. That's such a good answer. I know Lancaster very well because my
mm,
home city is Carlisle. And
mm,
a friend of mine lives there. It's a beautiful place. And of course, it's
mm,
very near Morecambe, where,
mm,
of course, Eric Morecambe was born, Eric Bartholomew. And that's the
mm,
reason why this blog exists.
mm,
Those two, I can remember aged about 5 years old, watching Morecambe and Wise with the whole family and
mm,
everybody just loving them. You talk about clowning. He
mm.
was a perfect clown. He was just, they were just terrific.
Oh yeah, no. Also, it's always my dad does a kind of speaks, even though he's a Yorkshireman, so you might not like it if I compare him to a Lancashire Lancastrian. But sort of the favorite Eric Morecambe line is, "I'm playing the right notes, just not necessarily in the right order." Um, uh, um, I remember me and a friend at uni when we were still there, we watched this. I don't know his name, but there was a guy who did a sort of one man sort of biopic
Yeah,
on Eric Morecambe as playing Eric Morecambe, and it
yeah.
was so uncanny as well. Of
I think I saw that. It was superb. I've got a load of books behind me about them, and I've
mm,
seen every play and everything about them except them. I
mm,
never saw them live. The first gig I ever saw on holiday, aged 7, was Les
mm.
Dawson, and then
Les Dawson was brilliant
oh, he was
though as
brilliant,
well.
absolutely brilliant. He's top 5 for me. He was brilliant,
With the
and then
way
yeah, just
his
amazing.
is the one that he breaks the piano, doesn't he?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
He's
um,
brilliant.
no, Les Dawson was always is always was certainly has been fun to watch as well.
Yeah. And then
Um,
and then a year later we saw Tommy Cooper, and that was it.
mm,
He was incredible. Because I don't think I always like to say he never realized how funny he was, and that's why he was funny. And because it was so brilliantly done. And I've got a bone to pick with you because I want to apologize because I always keep saying to you, I'm coming to see your show, I'm coming to see your show, and I've never seen it. So let's get that out of the way now. But you're top of my list to see, and that's why we've got
mm,
the interview now because I want you to tell me all about it. And I know this is going out next year, but if you're touring in
oh yeah.
2023 or if you're going around in 2023, please let me know because
Mm.
basically it leads on to the next question. What do you like to talk about on stage? Have you got any
So
specific themes?
um, my belief is sort of comedy should really talk about anything really.
Yeah.
Um, um, and I think uh, Hicks had a huge influence on what I sort of eventually, in a way of how I approached comedy. Ironically, um, um, and that it was basically I do seem to naturally steer towards animal themed things or
Right.
um, um, whether it's a bee or a shark um, or dog, and they often become sort of I take an absurd concept, or something that I find amusing, like the idea of a dog bishop, and then I play with that and then take it to its logical conclusion, or um, I take something that annoys me, like the people complaining about the Little Mermaid remake and how they cast Ariel to play uh, a black woman to play Ariel. So I took other out, and then we were saying that because it's not historically accurate, but it's like mermaids aren't real. Um, so your point is kind of moot. So I just thought like if you want an accurate version of Little Mermaid, then you're gonna have them gargling underwater because that's the sound of singing. Like it's it's a fantasy film. Your crabs don't talk, they don't sing. So it's like I like it leads me to make jokes about what would a joke be like in crab or
Yeah.
if it was done by a crab as in the way that crabs actually communicate, which is stridulation. It's basically they talk in the same way, not too dissimilar to how crickets talk, in that, crickets talk essentially by rubbing their legs. That's a bit reductionist. So if any biologists are going to get upset with me describing this, I'm just describing things in layman's term, but crabs also talk in this manner as well. Uh, but obviously, so the idea is that I just bash my legs to speak in crab. So I like to talk about these are some one example things, or I like um, to take this idea of swans being violent and then make a story of them being even more hyper violent, to the point of absurdity and wanting to destroy humanity. Or um, I uh, I might take the concept of Ghostbusters and then look it from a social justice perspective, but from the side of ghosts, which if you do that, the Ghostbusters are actually the villains.
Yes.
And then I start doing Afterlives Matter, and then I won't end up doing like, well, if ghosts are wrong, what about demonic portrayed in Ghostbusters? What about the demonic possession as well? And so misrepresentation of that. So talk is possibly not always the accurate description of what I do. Sometimes what I do on stage is more physical,
Right.
and it's better to say rather than what I talk about, what I just do. Um, and then, but the problem with that is that I do a lot of different things. Um, though I do often sometimes talk about more grounded things. Is something I definitely started doing more after the pandemic as well, and mixing it in with the weird stuff just to put some more grounded. And then I've talked about things like my own autism and experiences as an autistic person, or um, essentially other basically experiences more grounded in reality, like my histories and jobs, like working in animal research has been something I've talked about. So it's quite a menagerie.
Good
Uh,
word.
yeah, I did think menagerie is an apt description on the count of the amount of animal masks I have, uh, um, or animal themes, or a refusal to be human on stage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Um,
think that's what a comedian looks for. If
mm,
if you're a visual comedian, you want to go as far as you can and push the
mm.
barrier to be as original as you can.
Oh
And
yeah, no.
I think if you're original, then you stand out.
Mm. Oh no, I pride myself on my uniqueness.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not that that's not necessarily saying that I don't think other comedians are unique, nor do I. But the benefit I find of being an alternative comic is, especially when I started getting in London, there was a lot. I often encounter like there's this idea of people always joke about the same things, or
yeah.
and that's not my words. This is the words of stand-ups I'm talking to. Like, oh, no point in doing originality because everything's been done, so we're just putting a new spin. And that I have a bit of a bugbear with that. It's like, no, there's always room for something new, something different. You just need to expand.
Need to do it.
Um,
So following on from that, um, whether it's either visual or spoken. Tell me about your writing process for a routine or a particular show that you've created. Do you have a specific way of approaching what you're going to say to an audience?
Um, I have methodologies.
Right,
Um, uh, so I haven't written things down beyond note forms in my phone for a long time. It's
right,
often done in my head and I work it on the stage. So these days, if I want to work on a new concept, I have some notes in my head, put some key points. Uh, but even then, it's not really, it's on the phone just in case I forget.
like
Then
a
I go on
prop.
stage,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll do the idea and it will fail. But I pick the gigs where I will be allowed to experiment and fail. Or it might not necessarily fail, but I pick low stakes gigs
Right,
where it's like I'm not gonna go and do a 20-minute paid spot and test an entire 10 minutes of new material. I pick an open mic where it's they know me, they're gonna book me again. They want me to experiment anyway. Um, and I will basically test a new idea. Uh, and from that sort of point, that because it's important to take that leap, because once you start moving, I can start building the momentum, and then I start getting the new ideas and better ideas come in place of that. And uh, an initial idea I can take, uh, for example, the Church of Dog, um, wasn't so church themed heavy. It was originally meant to be more focused on human pups, for example,
right.
but its natural way it steered I was writing and testing it went more into one direction. So it's not necessarily, but it's trying to find the right ebb and flow with things. But I think it's done more through a lived experience. Um, and I do it essentially, I learn and develop it through a sort of by physically and actually doing it rather
Yeah,
than I I'm not really one. I might talk and spitball with ideas with people. I might message someone, but I don't typically write in a conventional script sense.
yeah, yeah,
I used to, but the problem is my handwriting is really bad. Uh, and so I end up can't read my own ideas, or what is written on paper doesn't make sense. Um, because it was a problem that I remember one friend said, like, I like hearing your ideas, but half of what you do has to be done on the stage. So I can't gauge it because I'm seeing the written form. I
yeah, yeah.
physically need to see you do it. Um, when this comes to, and that's just like 5, 10 minute routines. And I work usually everything in units of five. Um, Longer shows tend to be consisted of these, and it's just trying to find things that fit in the theme of that, and they naturally evolve and develop. And when I start doing the show, the more I end up doing the show, the more things start coming together and finding the natural flow. Um, uh, which is probably why it's important to put some time work in progress on certain shows.
Yeah.
Um, but I think a lot of what I do, my writing process is not really it's more of an oral
Well,
written
yeah,
process
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's fascinating because when I talk to a lot of the comedians, there's a lot of different answers how they
Mm,
approach it, and
mm,
that was fascinating listening to you. Um,
mm.
I can't ever imagine because of your approach you having a bad gig, but
Yeah.
please can you let me know your best and worst comedy gig if you've got one?
Okay, so I can name the best gig, the worst, which would probably, I think, generally it would be I think my alternative comedy memorial performance, AC, so, so ACMS is a very established alternative gig.
Know it well,
I
yeah.
and I regularly. I am a regular with them. And
Brilliant.
at any time we're in Edinburgh these days, during the Fringe, I will make sure to get a spot with them. And this year was probably one of the best gigs and performances I had with them. It's at Monkey Barrel, which is one of my favorite
Yeah,
venues and favorite gigs to do outside of Edinburgh Fringe. Never mind, because it's just full stop a very good club to do. But it's also with ACMS, which is also one of my sort of favorite brand of gig.
yeah,
I mean, because they don't have one singular location. Like ACMS moves, like they're generally outside of Edinburgh. They're in London, though sometimes they have been gig performed in Brighton.
yeah.
But in general, ACMS is probably one of my best gigs I do. Um, Worst gig, probably shouldn't name them. Um,
You don't have to.
um, um, no, I don't. I don't have to, and I won't. Now that one's difficult, because there's plenty of gigs there. I think where because there's many good gigs as well and great gigs, but then there's been many gigs where it's been like it's outside in a it's outside, and that's not fun for me. Because it doesn't. I need an atmosphere and
Yeah, yeah.
I need to be in a box. Essentially, like I need walls. Um, um, or I could talk like there was a Gong show way back in 2017 that was particularly bad.
Oh
Or
dear.
but I think one of the more worst ones and more, I think, I won't name it, but I'll say it was on the South Coast.
Right.
And I will say it was a very big room.
Yeah.
It looked like it was going to be a great gig, for me, and they seemed like the dog head. Uh, and then I started it, and I could tell instantly, like me and the audience were not on the same
Oh
sync,
my. It's
and it
horrible
was
when
like,
that happens.
and certain sort of things I said, like they went, "Oh, that's odd." I'm like, yeah,
It's yeah.
it's just it was. I think I had an option. It was maybe 10 to 15 minutes,
Yeah, yeah.
and generally I will always do the maximum amount of time. I think this was one of the one times where I went, no, I'm going to do 10 rather than 15.
Oh dear.
Um, because it was a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
it was work, and it just felt it wasn't a pleasant experience.
No, no.
And it,
The one and only time I've ever had a go at stand up comedy was a Gong show.
mm,
And I knew a promoter, and this years ago, and he said, yeah, yeah. He said we can get you on for 3 minutes, and there was three old fellas sitting in the back of the audience, and I ran on and I said, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. People think I look like Eddie the Eagle Edwards, the ski jumper, but I can't see the resemblance myself. And of course, right through college and everything, I was his double. And some old fella at the back some old fellow at the back just yelled, "Fuck off!" And that was it after about 10 seconds. And the promoter went, "Have another go, have another go." And so I had another go. Similar thing happened. And I said to him, I think my calling card is supporting these people in the audience, sitting in the audience,
mm,
supporting them going on stage. And that's what I've been doing ever since. You mentioned ACMS, and
mm,
Tom Tuck, who is basically runs that gig.
mm,
I've known him. We're going to move on to Edinburgh in a minute, but I've been going to Edinburgh for 20 years, and he's
mm,
always in something whenever I go and see him. He's an extraordinary
actor and comedian.
and comic and
Mm,
supporter of original comedy, I
mm,
suppose.
mm,
Trying to get him on. I hope he's going to come on the new
mm,
round of interviews I'm going to do. But I've got a lot of admiration for him. I've been to ACMS in
mm,
London, just the
mm,
once, but it was amazing. But I saw you at the bar on the last night of the Fringe because I remember buying you a drink.
Mm.
And watched that extraordinary ACMS awards show, which went on for
Ah,
3 hours.
yeah, I was, you just reminded me, because Tom mentioned it,
Yeah.
the audience member that was a bit too drunk and had to
Oh
be
yeah, they
thrown
had to
out.
remove. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
That was. I mean, he's a bit too excited and a bit too drunk. It
it,
doesn't
it
bode.
happens.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, if we're going to praise Tom, we should also be praising Isabel,
Oh yes,
Isabella,
God. Yeah,
who produces. Like Tom is certainly he is the one of the founding board members, and
yeah.
it wouldn't exist without him. But equally, it wouldn't exist without it wouldn't have existed without John Luke Roberts or
Mm.
Isabella's work
Yeah, very
either,
much so.
nor would it be what it was without probably many of the board members that are
It's been,
also
it's
part of
been
it.
it's been running for a very long time, isn't it? Is it
Mm.
celebrating an anniversary or something?
It's I can't tell you exactly how old
No.
ACMS is, but it's been a long established night. Um,
Yeah,
uh, and definitely a staple in London outside of Edinburgh.
yeah, yeah.
Um, while
Supports
in
a lot of up and coming comedians and original comedians.
mm,
It's a great institution. Let's move on.
mm,
How do you cope if you have any nerves before you go on stage? Do you ever get nervous before you go on, or
I don't I think a comedian without nerves is a foolish comedian,
good
or at
answer?
least a comedian that's never experienced. Again, so generally depend these days it's more contextual. It
Yeah,
has to be certain kinds of environments where I'll get nervous. Generally, it has to be a situation where I'm either doing new material, um, or I'm doing a competition, or if in a rare instance I get a moment of insanity and I've decided to go and do a gong show. Um, um, which is an alternative act is not always really a good idea in my opinion. Or if it's a high stakes gig where I'm getting paid, or if it's a trial spot that um um because if I'm doing material I've done quite regularly, then there's a lot of gigs that I won't necessarily get nervous.
yeah, of
Um,
course.
because I know it works. It's the unknown that
It's like
makes me
exactly.
nervous.
It's the fear of the unknown, isn't it? Yeah,
Um, um, I mean, the way I do it is it's channeled into the performance. Like, I don't think I can divorce myself from the nerves when they come.
interesting. Yeah, yeah,
It's a very much you just have to channel it into the performance, which, especially in my more earlier days, um, if we go from my uni days as well as my the earlier years of 2017, 18, and 19, that nervousness would have been channeled more uh, through the more higher energy aspects of my performances because I
yeah.
usually am quite high energy performer as well. Um, though I do also have obviously develops involved where not everything of mine is high energy.
Right.
But it's just learning how to channel it. And it sort of becomes a sort of generally I go into a sort of trance-like state, was often the goal. Um, it's almost sort of meditative practice of which I'm focusing on the material, thinking on the aspects of it, um, as in each of the motions and where it leads to, um, and just then doing it, sort of like trying to unleash, pulling back a string of a bow and then releasing the arrow sort of thing. So it's just learning
That's
to
beautiful.
control that tension and release it at the right point. Um,
So would you say that as soon as you walk on stage or as soon as you speak to an audience, the nerves go?
No.
No.
Um,
Is it
uh,
is it your first laugh? I don't know.
um, it can be throughout the performance that
Yeah.
I'm nervous.
Yeah, yeah.
Like again, it does depend on the the situation. And obviously some situations it's more easy than others,
Uh,
but it's not necessarily when that first laugh happens. It's not even, it might be that throughout in the entire performance, I'm on edge.
yeah.
Um, and it might be that I might be on that performance and I'm not even, I'm just on autopilot. Uh, and there's no nerves whatsoever. I mean, I generally go into some form of autopilot when I go on stage, because I'm going in the motions. Um, um,
So because of the material that you know that works well, you're
yeah.
on autopilot with it all, and you never know what you're going to get. That's the magic thing about live comedy.
Um, so I mean, you say you never know what you're gonna get, but if you do it enough,
Yeah.
you can. Um, and this is probably the scientific background coming through. But you can spot patterns,
Yes.
and you
Yeah.
can,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
That's where I was trying to get to. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Aaron Levine. I was talking to Aaron Charles Levine on the way back from a gig in Nottingham in his car,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna say it was Nottingham. I feel it was Nottingham. It could have been another gig,
Right.
but I feel it was recent, and if it was Nottingham. But he was saying like you approached comedy definitely like you can tell you were a science you trained in the sciences because my first degree was biomed and then I recently then did a master's in
Well
psychology.
done. Yeah.
My approach to comedy very much seems to apply this scientific method, which every gig is an experiment,
Yeah.
uh, whether I am testing the material or the audience. Because if it's a new gig that I haven't done before, I'll bring all material because I need a control
Right.
uh, variable. And if it's a gig that I've done before, I'll probably bring new stuff because I need a new. They are the control.
Sure.
So there's an element of predictive. Now, obviously, audiences might do things that you don't expect. But the more I've done something, the more I know, and it's often led to why when I've done stuff that has heavy audience interaction, and I do, ironically, for someone who's autistic, do a lot of audience interaction stuff. But if you look at it, it's quite one-sided. But the reason why I might respond to sort of many different pathways and unpredictabilities of what the audience might do is simply because of the amount of times I've done it, and it's likely happened already before.
That's
Uh,
it. Yeah.
um,
I'm so looking forward to coming to see you live. I really am. You've completely sold it to me.
mm, thank you.
Yes. Let's move on. Tell me all about your experience of going to the Edinburgh Fringe, because the Edinburgh Fringe is my holiday every year, and
Mm,
I go for about a week. I've been going for my 17th year, and certainly the last year or two, I've expanded more and I've gone to more
mm.
festivals and fringes. What's your view of them? Have you been as a punter? Have you performed at them? Tell me all about it.
Yes, to all the so when I saw the notes for that question, there was sort of there's many different. When you say your first fringe, my question is, um, do you mean the first time I went to Edinburgh
Yes.
Fringe full
Well,
stop?
well, the first time you went to the Edinburgh Festival, I mean, I've always been as a punter,
So as a punter, that would have been around 20, it would have been 2015 or
right?
20, no, 2014.
2014. And
Um, that was
when,
when I was still a student. My comedy society took a sketch group show up. I wasn't part of that. but it was seeing a lot of different shows, and it was quite uh, a lot of different gigs to watch and
Yeah.
see. I don't remember how many days we were up there, me and my friend who went, but we certainly enjoyed it. There was just a lot of different things and sort of. I still remember. I don't remember his name, but he was a Lancashire-based comic that dressed in a onesie, and he had his other friend who was part of his show, and they were at one point in the show they were singing about going to a pencil museum, and the friend was throwing pencils about,
That sounds
um,
brilliant.
or he was talking about how he met his wife, and his wife only liked like orange fruit pastels.
Right.
So what we did is emptied fruit pastels and then made a roll of just pure orange ones. So it's like, have another one. Or it's an orange one, you like the orange one, have another one. But,
It's a
Uh,
good idea.
um, so that was like the first as the punter.
What about
First,
performing?
um, so there's been different years where, so this year's the first time I've actually taken done the full month as a solo show. I've done previous years, but they were more compilation spots, so there's less at stake there. It was fun, interesting, um, but it was just like probably just performing more regularly than I would in, say, London.
Yeah.
Um, but in this year at Edinburgh, doing my first hour as well as debuting, which was not the plan, but my venue made me. Uh, because they're like, oh, the reviewers won't come if you don't make it a if you say it's a work in progress. Like, fine, we're debuting. We already won one award at that point because of the Keep Stage Award.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But it's like, fine. I mean, my plan was just to do it as a whip, but now I guess I'm gonna debut and ruin my chance at getting newcomers awards, but might as well because it's just newcomers. Um, Unfortunately, I did come out with a very s- um, successful Edinburgh run.
Hmm.
Critically, like,
Congratulations again. Yeah.
we had 5 and 4 star reviews. We got recommended by the British Comedy Guide. We got nominated for the Malcolm Hardy Award, which was on my list of awards
That's fantastic.
for comic originality. So naturally, I'm very happy with that one. The Neurodiverse Award for that autistic character. So actually, autistic excellence. I got nominated for that, which was part of the reason why I made my particular show this year named as it was because of that award. So there was the award kind of influenced the show because it said, okay, more people are talking about autism, and but there's a lot of stand-ups talking about autism, but there weren't many, in my opinion. It's not, and there are many autistic clowns.
Yeah.
Alexander Richmond, for example,
Yeah.
he is diagnosed with autism, and he's a brilliant comic as well. Like he got an award-winning show of himself because he's an Australian comic, but he lives in the UK now.
Right.
But he watched his show 12 Angry Men played by one man. Uh, and the idea is that there's 12 different characters,
Yeah.
which the audience can select except for one particular character. Um, and he sort of will play. So he's written like 12 different 5-10 minute sections. So he's written twice or 3 times the amount of what a normal comic would have done for Edinburgh,
Wow.
uh, for the randomness, and it means he has such a rewatchable show. But the one that he got some awards, I think, for the Australian fringes, was this character he does. So he has this character called Snake Boy, and it's meant to be that is a human that was raised by snakes, so he understands the world from the perspective of snakes, and it's such a brilliant piece. But how do I, Oh yes, because there's not many autistic clowns, and
Yeah,
he's an
yeah, yeah, yeah,
autistic
yeah.
act himself. But there's not many like there's many comics who are stand-ups with autism talking about it. Like there's Joe Wells, there's um Harry Wright,
Yeah,
Luke Polton, um, who I think was then we've got um Mark
yeah,
Nicholas of Disabled sorry of Laugh Able.
yeah,
It this year him and Benny Shakes also overtook Disabled Cants from the guy who used to run it.
yeah,
Because I think he no longer just it he wants to pass on the mantle.
yeah,
But you've got many uh, different comics. Ria Lena also talks about her autism.
yeah.
Um, and you've got a lot of stand-ups, but in my opinion, not many clowns. And I wanted to do my perspective of autism. Um,
I think that's your uniqueness, as you say. You're performing as a clown,
mm,
which stands out, and certainly, as I said at the top,
mm,
um, all the fringes and festivals I've been to this year. I've been to Buxton, I've been to
mm,
Brighton, and I've
mm,
been to Edinburgh. I've seen you in the street
mm.
wandering around
In
trying
that,
to get folk in because it's such a unique thing. And as I
mm,
say,
mm,
what saddens me at the moment is that I haven't seen your show, but I am determined to see it in the next, well, certainly before Christmas, if I can.
mm.
Are you performing it in London at all?
So, yes, I am doing Penn Theatre on the blah, blah, blah. Um, on the 21st, no, no, not the 21st. On the 20th of October, I'm doing the Penn Theatre
Right,
as part of their Fast Fringe.
right. I will
So,
try and get to that then because this show it sounds so unique
mm,
that it that's the magic of it. So
mm,
congratulations with it. I'm delighted you've been nominated for all those awards
mm,
in Edinburgh, and I'm delighted you've had a successful one.
mm. Um, and I would also like the people I lost the two awards to.
Right,
Um, and it's not necessarily guaranteeing that I would have won it if they hadn't either, just to be
sure.
clear. Because for the Malcolm Hardy Award, Mark Silcox and I think it's Ivor Debonair,
Yeah,
were also up for the comic originality. But it was Phil Ellis who won it, and I know Phil is well over twice the amount of years of experience
yeah,
of
yeah,
myself. I don't know the exact amount of time, um, uh, but I also know that in regards to the Autism Award, it went to Don Biswas, who himself
oh,
is
he's
a brilliant
yeah,
autistic comedian
yeah,
as well.
he's superb. Yeah,
Um, and he's been going for 16 years.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so it's like the people I lost those awards to, at least this year, were people that like there is no shame in losing to them because they have
so many good ones there. Yeah, yeah.
three times met 3 times the amount of years of experience compared to myself. Um,
So
and
let's move on. So to date, what has been your comedy highlight?
I would argue it would probably be the Edinburgh Fringe this year. Like to have been nominated for like this year has been quite a highlight in terms of its
Brilliant.
plaudits in general, not just inside Edinburgh Festival, but also as an alternative comedian, I don't expect to never expected to get nominated for the BBC Comedy Awards.
That's
But
extraordinary.
um, and that's something I stress with people. Like I've achieved what I have as an alternative comic in realms that a lot of alternative comedians don't necessarily get. Sorry, get necessarily. It's not common for us to get recognition.
Right.
So I'm weird because I'm often on an alternative comic on the mainstream circuit, but I'm weird even amongst alternative comedians with the recognition I get
Yeah,
in general. Um, it's like in the case like Vigo is another exceptional clown who's had
sure.
recognition that very few alternative comedians get.
Yeah, yeah. This is
Um,
Vigo then who won Britain's Got Talent, isn't he? Yeah.
yeah, just I did actually. So in Edinburgh, I was flying, and then someone had a dog that was quite fluffy. And I'm like, oh, what's the dog's name? It's like, the name's Vigo. It's like, I've got a Vigo too. He wears a high vis jacket. Uh, um,
Yeah.
um, but no, Vigo's a good friend.
I'm
But
hoping he's going to come and do this.
oh yeah, I hope you can get him on at some point as
Yeah,
well. He's just
he's an amazing talent. Um, Following on from that, who are your favorite comedians, past and present? Did you have comedy growing up?
I would hope so. Uh,
You mentioned Monty Python.
Monty Python is a cornerstone of my essence and being.
Yeah,
I don't think I I think of all the absurdist comedy and surrealist comedy that's existed, without them, I probably wouldn't exist. But then many of the things that probably influenced me because they were influenced by them
of course.
wouldn't exist either.
Yeah, yeah,
That's not to say that the only ones. Like I did grow up with things like Two Ronnies as well, and
yeah.
sketch shows like the Armstrong and Miller and Harry and Paul. But I also grew up with like the first live performance I recall watching was Lenny Henry, and Billy Connolly was one of my first stand-ups, and my mother will often refer to Billy Connolly as our Billy. So
That's
um,
brilliant.
um, Mum is very particularly attached to Billy Connolly, so um, Billy Connolly is strangely a huge influence.
That's
And
amazing.
actually, um, have we got to the first gig story yet, or has that already happened?
That's already been and gone, my friend. Your first gig.
Oh, right, right. Oh, no, I never mentioned the first, went into detail on that one.
Well, please do, please do.
So I may have gone Scottish halfway through my first ever set. And just to be clear to anyone listening or watching, I am not Scottish. I just, though annoyingly, working in schools this year, a lot of students have mistaken me for Irish or Scottish. I'm like, no, I'm just different parts of England do have different accents.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
But
but
it's your tribute to the great comedian, isn't it?
uh, no, I just think that in more intense experiences, especially earlier my voice would go more Celtic, um, like Rod Gilbert going, "The power of a million candles."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He is an extraordinary talent. I mean, I first saw him, of course, being interviewed by Parkinson and telling
Uh,
that infamous bicycle joke in the 70s that
mm,
made his career. But I did see him live twice towards the end of his career, and he's got this extraordinary ability to make anything funny. He just
mm.
starts talking, and it's just hilarious. I think it's the delivery or
What I enjoy
he
with
does
Billy
it.
Connolly is
Oh,
that he has the ability to go on a tangent,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
distracted by something that he's
yeah,
talked about.
yeah,
Now, how much that is actually him performing, because obviously there is the
yeah.
magic of performance, of which is not at all as it seems.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the way he naturally goes from one topic and then veers
Yeah,
back into a topic.
it's an
Um,
extraordinary ability. It really
um,
is.
but also, if we are talking about past as well,
Mm.
like Robin Williams is
Oh,
like
amazing.
would be on my list as past comedians,
Yeah,
because Weapon of Mass Destruction,
yeah.
especially his Viagra bit,
Yes.
had me crying.
Yeah,
Um, Bill Hicks, despite how if we look at certain things he said was problematic, and I think it's a annoying thing of which I think a lot of my own generation do. Like someone, a comic like or sitcom like Friends existed, and then they wow, there's like yeah they did this,
Mm,
but they also did a lot of great things, and you have to consider things in the perspective of their own time period as well. Like comedy does not exist in a vacuum,
exactly. Yeah,
and
yeah.
what was acceptable at the time that Friends was around is not the same now, and
Mm.
that should not take away from that, but nor should that take away in the case of a lot of other various other forms of comedy, especially stand-up. I'm just saying that because something if
Mm.
Bill Hicks is a bit of a problematic one because I don't when I was a younger comic in my earlier 20s, I was much more proud Bill
Yeah.
Hicks, but as I've matured in age, I can see the problems.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Um,
We saw him in Manchester on his It's Just a Ride tour,
yeah,
and the thing that stood out was that it was his presence. We saw him at midnight in the Royal Exchange Theatre, and by God, he had the audience in the palm of his hand. What he was trying to get across to them was not only hilarious, he tried to make it relatable, but he was very it was like preachy. And it was fascinating watching him, and it was a superb performance.
what I think drew me to Bill Hicks was while I come from a scientific background, I also have a bit of I've had a lot of dabbling with philosophy as well, and
Yeah,
that was something very much of Bill Hicks' of interest. I think that's what, as well as the fact that the man, because prior to him, a lot of the comedy I watched, which was British comedy, and that's not necessarily to its merit. Like, for example, Dara Breen's ability to crowd interact is one of my favorite things to watch.
yeah,
Is Dara
brilliant.
Breen at the start of his own show, make each show unique. Um, but with Bill Hicks, it was that he talked about he what now all comedians talk about what they want to talk about, but his was not. It never felt like he was pandering, or and again, that's not to say all comics are pandering, but it was he wanted he it wasn't no issue was complex. It didn't seem like any idea was too complex
Yeah,
or
yeah,
um out there for him to engage, and he could be fully himself, and it was that willingness to engage on different things. Now, preachiness, I can have a mixed feeling on certain. Like when he did it, I feel fine. If I see other comics do it, it depends because I've seen some
exactly.
comics that
Yeah,
have
yeah,
um, and even then, there's certainly things I can like. I agree, but um, like um, but I can't also deny Bill Hicks has been in the past and is still because of that past an influence.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think he has to a lot of comedians.
Uh, I think also Stuart Lee would also in that
Yeah,
partly because actually naturally Stuart Lee will come up when Bill Hicks because Stuart Lee has the whole "I wish I was a dead Bill Hicks." Um,
yeah,
um, Stuart Lee is another influence as well,
brilliant.
because of his the level of commitment he has to his ideas.
Yeah,
Uh, I think Tornado had probably one of my favorite endings,
yeah.
uh, possibly because the way that the show was building it was I was not expecting that particular ending. I'm just not saying it now
No,
for anyone who hasn't seen it, because if the ending's important of a show, I wouldn't want to spoil it.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Um, but um, equally, Bill Bailey, he's a
Oh,
favorite of mine. If we're talking more American comics, for example, well, if we're talking more unknown, then we've got Delightful Sausage, you've got Elf Lions, and you've
yeah,
got Luke Rollison, brilliant comics I've watched that are alternative. I quite elevate quite highly. If we talk, I think, or Beck Hill is another example of
Oh,
a great.
superb with the cartoons. Yeah, she's
Uh,
brilliant.
I think she's Beck Hill's. Uh, the cartoons are great, but I remember watching her show back in 2019. It was just brilliant throughout,
Yeah, yeah,
cartoons
yeah.
and that. But then you've also uh, uh, um, sorry, you've also got American comics that I greatly love. Like I will always be excited for a Bo Burnham or
Mm.
a in terms of his inventiveness uh and the sort of whole showiness of it. But then I do like my lovely depressed boy Patton Oswalt, uh, or Bill Burr as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
There's so many. I mean,
oh yeah.
my 1,300 or so that I've seen. I've got some incredible memories in the blog. I mean, the first one, as I said, for me was Les Dawson. First time I came down to London, the first time I went to the Comedy Store, I saw
Mm,
Linda Smith, God bless her. I saw Peter Kay in a Manchester pub on a bill of five comedians before he was famous,
mm.
and I laughed so hard at him. He was fourth on. I laughed so hard at him. I missed the fifth act, and I had to go up and apologise to Dave Gorman because he was the fifth act. Which was it was just amazing, you know. And the magic thing about the blog is watching you all develop as well, because I list all the different times that I've seen you, and it's just magic watching you all grow. It's fantastic. Like me, do you go to a lot of comedy gigs as a member of the audience, or have you?
I think me, I almost joke about this with comics half the time, which is if I'm at a gig, it's because I'm probably performing at the gig.
Yeah,
Um, I'm not a very good watcher of comedy,
right.
or at least I haven't been for a long time. I think it's just because the nature of the way the circuit works that you end up you're working a day job, even though we're not supposed to talk about that. Um, as well as you're doing about 4 or 5 times a week, means that there's often not much time to go and perform. I do um, in Edinburgh and festivals. I will watch shows,
Yeah,
and then in and mainly Edinburgh, and have been watching shows for there. But then I do also try and go to Soho Theatre or
sure.
previews of things sometimes. But in general, I'm not. But these tend to be shows in terms of gigs where it's a compilation. That's even rarer. Um, um, and it's generally probably, yeah, it's just a mixture of I don't have time often to go and watch gigs.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but then also because I feel like that is time I either should be doing admin or performing myself, or
Sure.
so I feel almost ashamed to say, embarrassed to say it, but no, I'm not a very good watcher of gigs.
Would you, if you were on a bill of five acts, would you, and you were first on, would you stay and watch them all?
Um, Generally, I try and make a
Yeah,
habit to stay.
yeah,
Um, in London, um, in general, I've always, so when I started, and especially when I started in London, it was always, I could, I never, it was always stay and watch. And that's the case in
yeah, yeah,
most, even today, I will stay, um, because it's a courtesy, in my opinion.
of course.
Um, um, though preferable if it's a gig I also enjoy as well. Um, that being said, if it's outside London, if it's depends on where that gig outside London is, for example,
Yeah,
because I need to get back and I'm not going to
sure.
stay if it means I'm going to miss my last train or a night bus back. Um, um, I'll do as long as possible, but
Yeah.
I be due to the fact I need to understand my own limits.
Of course.
Person, I have to understand like it's not always expected for me to stay.
Sure.
In fact, it's often more accepted for people to leave. So outside London, I will try and stay as long as I can.
Right.
I often may stay longer than I should. Um, but not always. Um, but generally, I do have that habit of sticking around.
Sure.
Um,
Sure. Yeah. This has been wonderful talking to you. You've been a fantastic guest. Just before we go, is there anything else you'd like to say? So, have you got any podcasts? Are you on tour? I believe you've got a podcast with Danny Walsh, who's
so,
just been on this podcast.
so me and Danny are setting up a podcast. It's just been a very slow process because
Right.
we're very busy boys. In Because his job and events in his life, as well as events in my life and touring my show, has meant we're very busy. But we are meant to at some point make a podcast
Brilliant.
called Folklore. I'm not sure if we're changing the title um, currently, but the working title of the podcast is Folklore and Disorder. It'll be a podcast on mythology,
That's brilliant.
as this is something that me and Danny are um, mutually interested and enjoy reading and talking about.
Sure.
Um,
And
um,
you've got your shows in London, haven't you, coming up?
so I have Penn Theatre coming up in October, but that's not going to be much help for the Easter audiences. But
Well, it depends
um,
when we put this podcast out. But yes,
mm,
the recording of the we're recording the podcast in September 23, but it
mm,
will probably be released Easter 24 because of the way it's done. But yes, if you've got gigs coming up, please tell me about them and I'll try and get to them. So
um,
certainly the one
so
in October.
so yeah, there's the 20th of October. There's also Faversham Fringe. I've got on um I've got the Faversham Fringe at the start of October. Sorry.
Yeah,
Uh, 6th of October is the Faversham Fringe.
right.
20, if I recall, is Penn Theatre in London.
Yeah.
Nottingham, I'm doing the 5th of November because of course I'm doing it on Bonfire Night. I should be doing Leicester Square, not Leicester Square, Leicester Comedy Festival. I don't know why I keep
I'll
saying
see you
Leicester
there
Square.
definitely because I go there every year. I think it's one of the best.
I believe I'm supposed to be doing Leicester. Um, I'll probably take it back to Brighton.
Yeah.
I'm in the talks for Glasgow as well.
Wow. Yeah, you're going all over the place. And also
Uh,
as well, where can people find you on social media?
so if you eventually they can find me. No. So if you type Stephen Catling in Facebook,
Yeah.
uh as it currently stands, it will still be the picture of a man dressed as a bee uh, on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So if you type
Good.
Stephen Catling on Facebook, you can find me on there. If you go on Instagram, it's Catling Stephen, so it's just my surname, then my surname. And then if you go on Twitter, it's Mooseface42. Um,
Brilliant.
sorry, X now.
It's X, isn't it? It's not Twitter. Yeah. I don't know what all that carry on is, but yes, it is.
It's called it's called Elon Musk is having a midlife crisis. Um, and has bought Twitter and renamed it because why not?
Why
Uh,
not? Yeah.
I don't like Elon Musk.
Well, there we are.
He's um, yeah. Let's end the podcast with Elon Musk. But if you go on, I generally if you I keep things regularly sort of posted on Instagram and Facebook. There is the link tree, which will be on the Instagram account as well,
Yeah.
which will have links to actual shows, which I'm going to update that again at some point because I need to update it because there's some shows that need to be deleted because they've happened or but if you look for my name, Stephen Catling, which is with a PH, and
Yeah.
Catling, it's Catling,
Yeah.
not how some people have managed to spell it, who I'm not going to name and shame, which has been sometimes people spell it Caitlin somehow.
That's Catling.
Yeah, which some people think that's how my name is pronounced as
That's
well.
not good.
But it's if you type Stephen Catling and you put Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook,
It
you
comes up
should
with
find
you.
or link.
Well,
Yeah, you should
listen,
find.
my friend, as I say, I've much enjoyed talking to you, and I'm so looking forward to coming to see the show
I'll be
very
delighted to see
soon.
that.
And you look after yourself, and all the very best to you.
Thank you, Richard. Are we gonna thank
Take
you?
care and all the best.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you very much for your time and all the best to you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
now. Bye bye.
Bye.